Remember 50,000 years ago when it used to be controversial for an automotive brand to launch an SUV? Much like when Porsche launched the Cayenne back in the early 2000s, Mini copped quite a bit of flack when it launched the Countryman small SUV back in 2010. Cut to 2024, and the now quite successful Countryman is entering its third generation, and we are here in Portugal to drive it. This new generation is the first time the Countryman gets a fully electric version, and that's what we're going to be focusing on for this review. So let's see what all the fuss is about and get behind the wheel. Woohoo! Now, a lot has changed with the new Countryman, including the introduction of that fully electric variant. So naturally, pricing has gone up a bit. But the big news is how big it's become. It's like it's taken a shot of steroids or something. But there's a reason for it. This has gotten bigger, so Mini can slot in the Aceman small SUV into its lineup, which is going to be revealed imminently.
In Australia, the Countryman is available in petrol grades, but we're concentrating on the electric grades for this review. The single-motor electric Countryman is called the E, and the sportier dual-motor EV variant is the SE. Both the E and SE are available in 3 distinct trims. The Countryman E kicks off with competitive pricing, $64,990 before on-road costs for the core, while the SE runs from $72,990 to $77,990. The mid-range Favoured that we drove on the launch is priced at $75,990. There's no shortage of tech on board the Countryman, and standard gear is solid, with sports seats and steering wheel, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, wireless phone charging, home and public charging cables, a head-up display, automatic tailgate with a kick function and digital radio. Oddly, it has heated steering wheel as standard across the electric range, but heated seats are only standard on higher grades. For a more detailed rundown of the standard gear, head to carsguide.com.au for the written review.
Okay, so let's talk about size for a minute, because again, this thing is much bigger than the old one. In fact, it's 130 millimetres longer and 60 millimetres taller. That's a lot of millimetres. It's actually bigger than the BMW X2, which we reviewed recently on this same trip. And it's around the size now of a Volvo XC40. That extra length, of course, means there's more wheelbase, 22 millimetres more. And that, of course, means that there's more interior space. Now, I actually drove the outgoing Countryman not that long ago, and I can tell you in the metal, it is noticeably larger. Naturally, it has a much more modern look, and there's something quite retro-futuristic about it. You can see at the front, it's quite a bit different to the old model. You've got reshaped headlights, a more dramatic grille, and quite a sculpted bonnet as well. You've got the same basic SUV shape, but the vertical tail lights have also been redesigned, and quite cleverly, they've got different lighting signatures for the front and the back, depending on which grade you get in the particular variants.
Thankfully, the tech upgrade and more modern vibe has not diluted the interior design, which remains undeniably Mini. It's even more minimalist than before, with far fewer buttons, and it looks better for it. The use of reclaimed materials is clear, with woven fabric on the dash and doors with intersecting colours. The 9.5-inch circular OLED screen dominates the dash, and it's not just a cool bit of tech, it's also a striking design element.
Okay, big changes outside the Countryman, big changes inside the Countryman, and I'll get to how big it is in here in a minute, but it's all about the tech and materials in here. Mini's been talking up this circular OLED screen, first time in a car application. It's very impressive. It's so crisp and crystal clear, this screen. It's wild. And there's quite a lot of functionality, and there's quite a bit more detail in my written review at carsguide.com.au about what you can do in here. But suffice to say that there are a number of, Mini calls them experiences. There's a little toggle button here. They're like modes or moods, if you will, and it changes the sound of the EV. It changes the noise you'll hear, and it changes a whole bunch of other things, including the lighting and massage seats and all of that kind of thing. It kind of sounds gimmicky, and it is, but it actually is quite cute, and some of the noises, the EV noises that you can change are really, really cool. It's interesting that there's so much tech in here, and this is the version 9 of Mini's infotainment system. obviously related to BMW's iDrive. But they've got what I would term an old school head-up display, which is a bit of a perspex screen that just sticks up from the top of the dash. The reason for that, the reason it's not projected on the windscreen, is because the angle of Mini's Countryman and the Cooper hatch, the angle of the windscreens, it just doesn't work. So that's why you've got a little old school perspex thing. It still works quite well. You've still got nav directions and all that kind of stuff if you want it. So nothing to really complain about. And it is good to have the speed directly in front of you, because obviously it shows up here on the central screen. But, you know, I'm not a fan of Tesla's way of doing things by putting it in the central screen. I think it should be directly in front of you. So at least I've got that. Elsewhere, there's some really lovely touches. The use of reclaimed and recycled material. It kind of feels a little harsh to touch. It's kind of hard to explain. It's kind of soft and harsh at the same time. But this petrol colour looks mint. I love it. And mixed with the kind of goldy bronze of the door handles, it's very cool. And this vibe, I've never seen this on a car, where they've kind of got this melding together of the two colours with that reclaimed fabric. It's all very modern. It's all very nice. There's a bit of hard plastic, but honestly, I think it's completely fine. In terms of practicalities, you've got a phone charger up here, more nooks down here, of course, a couple of cup holders, 2 USB-Cs down here, and more storage here. I love this tiny little spot here. You know, you can fit a few things in here. It's quite cute. It doesn't move. It looks like you can move it, and you used to be able to do that on previous generation Minis, not on this one. And this is just an armrest. I spent quite a bit of time going, how do you open this? You can't. This is not a storage system. This is an armrest. You can also fit quite a big bottle here in the door, and there's more storage down there as well. Glove box is standard size. Yeah, quite a bit going on up the front here, but it's pretty impressive. Okay, so I've talked about the size of this thing quite a lot, but it is important, and it matters inside, of course. So the previous two Countrymans had a bit of size, but they were really small SUVs. This is kind of the top end of a small SUV, I would say, in terms of size. As I said earlier, about the same as a Volvo XC40, which a lot of people use as a family car. So you could absolutely see this as a family car. If you can see, I've got an enormous amount of headroom in here, same as up the front. No need for sculpting any spaces in the roof, because there's just plenty of space. And I've got ample knee and leg room. Toe room's a little bit tight, but other than that, honestly, no complaints. A decent amount of room across the pew as well. Probably more comfortable with 2 adults as opposed to 3, but 3 kids would be fine if the small one cops the middle seat. The seats, I meant to say before, the seats up front are really, really comfortable. Again, no leather. It's all synthetic leather and feels nice. You wouldn't go, oh, it feels cheap. It just doesn't feel like that at all. But those front seats are very supportive. Bit of a flatter base back here, but that's kind of to be expected in an SUV. And I really like this colour as well. Practicality-wise, knee-level air vents. Unfortunately, none of the face-level air vents. The 2 more USB-Cs. A little bit of a storage nook there. And again, my quite thick bottle fits in the doors there as well. Central armrest, of course, and you've got a couple of cup holders there, and the Isofix on the 2 outboard seats. But yeah, plenty of space in this Countryman.
There's no spare wheel of any kind in the electric Countryman. You're limited to a tyre repair kit, but it does have plenty of space. With all seats in place, it swallows 460 litres, which is 45 litres less than the petrol Countryman. With the rear seats lowered, it expands to 1,450 litres. The Countryman E has power and torque outputs of 150 kilowatts and 250 newton metres from its single motor setup. ensuring a 0 to 100 km/h time of 8.6 seconds. The more potent SE has a dual motor setup, pumping out 230 kilowatts and 494 newton meters, completing the 0 to 100 km/h dash in just 5.6 seconds. The WLTP driving range for the 64 kilowatt-hour battery is up to 462 kilometres for the Countryman E and 432 kilometres for the SE, which is not as much as a Volvo XC40, for example. Energy consumption is a claimed 16.8 to 18.5 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometres for the SE. It has a maximum DC charge rate of 130 kilowatts and 11 kilowatts for AC. Using a DC fast charger to get from 10 to 80% capacity will take 29 minutes, according to Mini.
So there's a number of EV sounds to choose from depending on what experience or mode you're in. And again, it sounds like it'd be gimmicky, and it kind of is, but it just really works in a Mini, and some of them are quite entertaining. Obviously, the harder you accelerate, the more dramatic the noise is, so that's kind of fun to play with, but be careful. Speaking of acceleration, it is very quick off the line. Probably no surprise given the EV of it all, but yeah, very responsive. There is absolutely no shortage of performance with this car. The good news is they've maintained the fun to drive go-karty vibe of all Minis. Every Mini should have that, and regardless of how big this car has gotten, it is still fun to find a twisty road and see exactly what this thing can do. I've been incredibly impressed with the grip on this thing. It is the All-4, which is Mini's all-wheel drive system, but it has just stuck to the road. And earlier we had some quite nasty slippery weather, and just very, very impressive dynamics in this thing. Something that Mini has worked hard to improve with this generation is the ride quality of the Countryman, and it is much better than I remember. Again, I only drove the previous generation Countryman fairly recently. Obviously, this is a whole different kettle of fish now because this is the first electric version, but our drive today has seen some very, very sketchy regional Portuguese roads, and I'm just very surprised at how well that this car has handled them. And you know, we drove the iX2 on this trip as well, and you can't help but compare those two cars because they are mechanically related, but the iX2 had a bit more of a bounce to it when you go over things like speed bumps or whatever, and it's just not as obvious in this car. And, you know, I know that those vehicles will appeal to different buyers, but again, they share so much mechanically. I'm just shocked at how differently they drive. And for me, this Countryman SE is much more fun to drive than the BMW iX2. There's not a lot wrong with the iX2, but this one is just more likely to put a smile on your face. Mini has also done its own steering calibration for this vehicle, despite sharing all of what it shares with BMW, and that's noticeable too. It's got really sharp turn-in. And quite strong brakes, actually.
The electric Countryman comes with the usual suite of driver aids, including adaptive cruise control, auto emergency braking, rear cross traffic alert with braking function, a blind spot and lane change warning, and a steering and lane control assistant. But it's yet to be tested by Euro NCAP or ANCAP. Check the written review at carsguide.com.au for more. All Minis come with a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty. Rather than a service schedule or term, Mini servicing is conditions-based, meaning the vehicle will tell the user when it needs to be booked in for a checkup. A 6-year service-inclusive package from Mini Australia will cost $1,753.
So the Mini brand is all about fun and go-kart feeling and all that kind of stuff. But that's not just marketing nonsense. They genuinely engineer these cars for driver enjoyment. And yes, the new Countryman is a lot bigger and more family-friendly, but it hasn't lost any of its mininess. In fact, in the SE, it's gained an impressive and an important new variant. For more on the Mini Countryman, head to carsguide.com.au.